Hello, I'm Deborah Bucher with Deborah Bucher Designs, and thank you for joining me today. Today I'm doing a video on how to pour resin, clear resin. There's two different kinds. There's the white opaque resin and then there's the clear resin. And today we're going to be pouring resin into these trays that I have finished. And if you're interested in learning how to do these trays, these were silver trays that you can pick up in the Goodwill all day long for $3.50. They're silver plated. And I've decoupaged them and painted them and decoupaged them and enhanced them with gilding wax. And now I want to protect the surface where the paper, the decoupage paper is. I want to protect that so that you can actually use these for serving trays. And if you have food on them or spilled drink on them, it's going to wipe right off. So that's what we're doing today. And what we're using is the two-part, it's backwards here, two-part clear coating resin. And if it's the first time you're using it, it can be a little intimidating, but really it's very simple. You get two bottles in the box, A and B, and what you're going to do is A, read your instructions every single time just to get a refresher on what you're doing. I use these little silicone cups because they're easy to measure in and easy to clean up. Because they're silicone, the resin just pulls off of them. Your box comes with three little cups, and these work. That's what I used the first few times. And it comes with a couple of these little popsicle sticks. I like using these big fat ones because they just work better in my cups and they're longer than the other ones. So, like I said, read your instructions. The important thing is to get exact and equal amounts of your resin poured. So I'm going to put the camera down so that you can watch what I'm doing. Pull it up just a bit. There we go. Okay, so I've got my silicone cup, and this holds 8 ounces. And before I did my decoupage on these, I poured some water in it to see how many ounces it was going to hold, and it held 8. Each tray held 8 ounces. And if you were wondering why I have this on a cookie sheet, that's just to help keep it level when I pick it up to move it, but it's actually, it looks like my cookie sheet's a little warped, so I'm gonna take it off of that because it's important to keep it level. So, and I'm going to do one at a time. This is the same resin that I use to pour in molds. If it's a really detailed mold, I like to, I'm gonna just puncture this, it's hard to get off. If it's a detailed mold, I like to use this resin because you have a long working time with this one, and a long open time. If you're using the white resin, that's a fast setting, and you have to work really fast. And if your mold is really detailed, that can make it challenging. In fact, I've had the resin set up in my cup before I was even finished pouring. So again, if you've got a lot of detail in your molds, I recommend that you use this. It takes 18 to 20 hours to set up. So I usually do it later in the day. And then the next morning when I get up, it's like Christmas, it's all ready to go. So looking at my cup, I'm going to pour A, and I'm going to pour a half a cup. I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I've got text coming through. So I'm starting with A, and I'm going to make sure that I get exactly, because it will not set up if you don't get equal measurements. I've had that happen once on a tray, as a matter of fact. And the reason I had equal measurements, but the reason it didn't set up is because I didn't stir it long enough. I was doing a live, and you know, you get distracted and you're not paying attention to the time, and I just didn't let it set up long enough, but it's fixable, so that was okay. Okay, now I'm pouring the B side in, which is much thinner. And having, for these pours on the trays, having the silicone cups, it makes it much easier. Okay, so that's perfect. And the A is thicker and stickier than the B side. And when you're doing this, you need to scrape your sides, and you keep stirring. You can see, I don't know if you can see it in here, but it's kind of milky, and you can see stripes in there. You want to stir it till you don't see any cloudiness in there, that it's all really well incorporated. And I'm going to watch the clock because it needs at least 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And you want to try when you're stirring not to get a lot of bubbles in it. And I can see I've got quite a few bubbles on here. And another reason for having these thicker popsicle sticks is when you're doing a large volume like this, it's kind of hard to stir it. I'm watching the clock. Like I said, one time when I was doing this for a tray, and it was a live video, and I was answering questions and just chit-chatting along, and didn't pay close attention to the time, and I didn't stir it long enough. And so the next day, when I went to look at it, expecting it to be completely solid, some spots were solid and some places were tacky when you touch it, and I was really disappointed and didn't know what I had done and didn't know how to correct it or fix it. So the answer was, I went online. This is Amazing Clear Cast is the product, and you can get it off of my favorites on my website. If you go to my favorites at the top, I have an affiliate link. You can get it off of Amazon. I just make a few pennies, but they don't charge you anymore. You can get it at Michael's, and a good time to do it because it's gone up in price since, you know, everything because of COVID and supply chain issues. It's gone up quite a bit. I used to buy it for like $17 or $18, and now I think it was $24, $25. So I did have a 20% off coupon at Michael's, so I used that. You can get it at Hobby Lobby, but I don't think Hobby Lobby ever puts it on sale. You know how they rotate items and put them on sale every week, but I don't recall seeing this on sale. And if you're doing a lot of projects, you can buy it by the gallons. This is the same product that you see people doing big pours on their kitchen countertops and bathroom countertops. I haven't ever tried doing one of those pours, but anyway, to get back to, if you don't get it stirred up and incorporated really well, the trick is that you just stir up some more and make sure that you get it stirred well, and spend your 2 or 3 minutes doing it, and just pour another layer on top, and it's just beautiful. You can't tell that there's 2 layers. It cures it and fixes the problem, and then everybody's happy. So that's a solution to that. Do as I say and not as I did. Okay, so I don't have any cloudiness left in here. I have little bubbles, but I think they'll take care of themselves. And there's no cloudiness, and I've scraped my edges well. So now I'm going to just give it a good pour. And another reason why I like these silicone cups is that you can squeeze them. And it did say in reading the instructions, and I said I read them every single time, when you're pouring a larger surface, to pour it and take your stick and kind of smooth it out a little bit. That helps with bubbles. And I'm not seeing any bubbles in the actual pour. And tomorrow I will post the finished pictures of these online. And again, you want to use the clear resin if you're doing detail pours, or as in this case, this isn't detailed, but I want it to stay clear. Didn't realize you guys weren't in the camera there. So what I'm doing is just pouring some in and using my stick just for the first layer. As soon as I get this covered, then I can just pour in the remainder of it. But this is to get your surface done. And honestly, I've done this in trays before, but I didn't remember that, and I reread the directions, so I would be sure to stir it as long as it needed to be stirred. And so that's why I say, unless you're doing this every single day, just take a minute and reread your instructions. Maybe if your brain is younger than mine, that's not necessary, but okay. So now I can see I have it all covered. So now I'm just going to continue to fill in, and it will self-level itself. And it's going to protect that really pretty bird decoupage tissue. And I have these tissues on my website. These are Roy Cycle decoupage tissues. This was 1 cup that I poured in here. And before I ever decoupaged this, when I was cleaning it, I filled it with water to the surface that I wanted it to fill to with the resin. And then poured it into a measuring cup so I'd know how much I needed to have in here. I'm gonna bring this up to the camera so that you can see it. Isn't that pretty? I can hardly wait to see it tomorrow. I'm gonna set it back here, out of the way. And we're gonna do the same thing for this tray. And again, these are the silver trays that you can pick up at the Goodwill for like $3.50. That's what I find them at most of the time. This has been decoupaged, painted on both sides, I used, this is another decoupage tissue from Recycled. This is called Red Damask. The other one was Bluebirds. And I used drop cloth so that I had something that was close to this background. And then I used gold gilding wax. These are all Dixie Belle products around the rim here. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to start with A and pour to 1/2 cup. And it should take up the rest of this bottle. Another little tip from my own personal experience is, like, most of the time I'm pouring molds. I'm not doing big surfaces like this, big pours. And if you don't use up the container of this after you've opened it, I have found that it will yellow. And if you're pouring a mold piece and you're going to paint it, that's not going to make any difference. But if you're doing a pour like this and you don't want to have a yellow tint to it, it does matter. So just that's another good reason to have more than one project at a time, so that you can just use this up and not have to worry about it after it's been opened. And because this is the A side, and it's thicker than the B side, and I need to be sure I have equal amounts, I'm having to it's taking longer to get this out of the bottle because it's thick like maple syrup, thicker than maple syrup, like Cairo syrup. You know how thick that is? It's thick. And it's just shy of being 1/2, and it's probably still in there. I can probably get it up to the 1/2. Almost there. So if I don't get it exactly to the 1/2, then the solution is when I'm pouring the B part in, to be sure that I get it to the same amount for the B part. Equal amounts is important. And I'm there. Okay, and now I'm going to pour up to the 1 cup. While I'm waiting for this to fill up, I'll just mention that I'm an elite retailer for Dixie Belle. I'm coming up on 4 years in April. And I'm a new retailer for Wise Owl Paints, which I'm very excited about. They have really awesome paint. And Posh Pigments, and Recycled Decoupage Tissue, and Would You Bin Moldings. So I'm like a one-stop shop. You can shop from my internet page, which is www.Deborah Bucher Designs. I'll put the link on this post. And I also have 2 locations if you're here locally. I have one in Phoenix at the Brass Armadillo, and I have one in Surprise at Ground Floor Artists, which is just such an awesome place. It's worth a field trip to go to. looks like we're right at the 1 cup. Okay, so again, I'm going to look at the time and stir, stir, stir. You can see, hopefully you can see in here that it's cloudy and you can see streaks in there. So, and I want to be sure and scrape around the edges so that we get all of that resin nicely incorporated. Getting there, I see fewer and fewer streaks, but there are still streaks in there. And this is what determines success or failure. And it's thick, you guys. My hand is getting tired from stirring. And I'm glad I went and found some of my fatter sticks. That makes it easier. And I'm starting to see the cloudiness dissipate. I can see why they call it amazing, because it really is amazing. And they have a product, Amazing has all kinds of different products, but they have molds, a product that makes molds so that you can make your own molds and then pour your resin into those molds. I haven't tried that yet. It's on my bucket list to experiment with, because along with refinishing furniture and teaching classes, I also make jewelry and lampwork beads, and I have 3 kilns in my garage. I have one for pottery and ceramics, one for annealing beads, and one for firing precious metal clay, which is a really fun product, and doing glass fusing. Okay, I think this is good. I'm going to move this tray over here under the camera so that you can see what's happening. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did the last time. And I'm just going to pour in sections and then use the stick to smooth it out.
You guys, talk amongst yourselves.
And again, I think it makes perfect sense that you're doing this on a level surface. And like when I do this with the molds, I always have extra molds out so that if I have excess resin mixed up, it's not going to go to waste. And it's always nice to have pieces already poured and ready for your next project. And I set my molds up on the cookie sheets. That way I can pour them and set them aside, get them out of my way without picking up each mold individually, because they're silicone molds and they would be flexible if I picked them up to move them after filling them. And what's fun about those molds is that you can use either the clear resin or the white resin that sets up quickly, or you can use the paper clay. And there's a reason to use all of them. Like I said, if you're pouring molds that are really detailed and you need a long open time, this is the product you want to use. If it's not a real detailed surface, then you can use the white fast setting. You have to work fast because it'll set right up in your cup while you're pouring. I've had that happen more than one time. And that's painful because then you've wasted your resin. And then these pieces are not real flexible. They're pretty rigid. However, I have learned by accident that if you heat them up with your heat gun, that will soften them and make them pliable enough that you can't bend them. They're not like wood you bend where you can bend them, but you can mold them to like a rounded or oval surface. And but if you're thinking and planning ahead, then if you've got a round surface that you need to go around, like I've done terracotta pots a lot with the moldings, and if you're going to do that, then I recommend that you use the clay so that you can form that clay, your mold, around the parameter of your piece. So it's a matter of picking the product that you need for what you're doing. So I'm just going to put my stick back in here, and like the nice thing about these silicone cups, you guys, is because they're silicone, that resin isn't going to stick to them, and I can just leave the stick in there, let it dry and set up like this is drying and setting up, and then it'll just peel right off. It's easy peasy for cleaning up like that. So let me get this one moved out of the way. I'll hold it up here so that you can see how cool that is. Turn the camera up. So that's it, you guys. I will come back tomorrow and give you an update on how it all sets up. If I stir it long enough and make sure that we've got a finished product. So I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.